I've always been a big proponent of teaching kids how to use tools, hand tools especially. And at Lakeside School, this is going back about 10 years ago, I was asked by the principal to teach a class on basic woodworking using nothing but tools that would have been available hundreds of years ago. So I had to pull out all my antique tools, and the kids were doing a project on, it was a story. They were reading a book about a father and a son that built a log cabin. So my job was to really show them what the tools were all about. And it was interesting. I was passing the tools around, and the kids were really fascinated by it. Some of these kids are going to be future engineers. They were fascinated by the way it was held together and held taut. That little twist mechanism seemed to really intrigue them. So I went through, I showed up with nothing but a bunch of logs. I didn't bring any 2x4s or any finished lumber. And I went through all the steps, not actually doing it in every step, but I showed them all the tools that were used. Everything from axes and hatchets, and there was an adze. You know, I talked about how they had to cut everything with hand saws. And the kids were really fascinated. I was so intrigued just watching them. I didn't have any kids goofing around. They were all paying attention. You know, the girls even loved it. You know, they thought it was really fascinating. So my conversation kind of went like this. I said, if you were out in the woods and you had nothing but trees to deal with, let's say you wanted to make some furniture, how would you go about doing it? So I actually took some pieces of wood, and I started out, you know, I brought some pieces of firewood that I had already cut, and I showed them what a froe was. And I showed them how to split the pieces out into small blanks that could be converted into either furniture parts or anything that you wanted to use. And we talked at great length. This little classroom project took about an hour, hour and a half. We talked a lot about wood. We talked about the grain, the rings in the wood and how it worked. I talked about the draw knife. I let a bunch of the kids use the draw knife, as well as the spoke shave and some of the simpler tools. I didn't want anybody to get cut. But I brought out the shaving horse, and that really intrigued them. I had my workmate there. I thought I'd need more than one piece, but we ended up doing everything with the old antique style shaving horse. And as you can see, the kids really got a kick out of it. This is my favorite tool. This is a spoke shave that I have that's from the 1700s. I think I've spoken about this before in some of my previous videos. And I talked with the kids about the craftsmen that used this tool and how important it was to all the craftsmen from hundreds of years ago, and how many people made their living with this one little tool. What really intrigued them was when I started saying this was before there was electricity or motors. The kids they just had a blast. They really, really enjoyed, you know, using it. I had to help some of them and show them, but once they got the hang of it, it was great. Yeah, my wife showed up with our dog Chip, and you know, we kind of made a good family day of it. Every one of the kids got their hands in the wood, and they really had some fun. I got the auger out. We had to drill some holes. We had to cut some pieces for the furniture. You know, we decided about, oh, there's Chip, good old Chip. Poor guy, passed away a few years ago. I used a lot of interesting tools. I showed them how to point the ends of the pieces of wood that we cut with the draw knife and the spoke shave. And we started by making cones on the end of the wood. Then I used a tool to make rounding, gosh, what do you call those, tenons for the piece. And I fit them to some holes in the wood, and we talked about what it would be like to make a bench. So I had a slab of wood there, and I let the kids drill some holes, and we actually pounded in the pieces and showed them what it would be like to make a bench from start to finish. Had a great time. The kids here, every one of these kids is college age. I don't know what has become of all of them. I still keep in touch with quite a few of these kids, but I really, really enjoyed this.